You ever write an assignment or an essay where it takes much longer than expected? Like this thing drags on for so long that you don't even care anymore. And by the time you're ready to submit it, you don't make sure it's good. Maybe you don't even read it over again. Honestly, you're just happy it's over with. Yeah, that's this movie in a nutshell. Mainstream media has always clowned Aquaman for being kinda lame. But Jason Momoa was able to bring a fresh approach to the role and actually make Arthur Curry seem kinda cool. And although it wasn't anything special, I actually think the first Aquaman was a decent movie. It fleshed out Momoa's character some more, while also introducing us to one of his greatest foes in Black Manta. So when Aquaman 2 was announced, I was excited to see where the hero's story went next. But as the months went on, my excitement was quickly turning into concern for the film. And after finally watching this movie, I know that the concerns I had back then were valid all along. In order to understand why this movie was doomed from the start, let's take a look at a timeline of the events. This might come as a surprise to a lot of you, but the first Aquaman still holds the record for the highest worldwide box office performance when compared to other DCEU movies, surpassing that magical $1 billion mark worldwide. And even though the movie had some mixed reviews, it's no surprise that a sequel was officially announced less than a year later in February of 2019. Although we didn't know it just yet, superhero films were arguably at their peak during this time. Remember that this was the year we saw the likes of Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home, all very successful movies and for the most part liked by audiences. Sure, Marvel was killing it, but DC was cooking up some stuff too. Shazam was also released in 2019, and although it didn't perform nearly as well as the competition did for that year, it was still considered a success. That being said though, things weren't going according to plan for WB. Sure, getting a few wins here and there with Wonder Woman, Shazam, and Aquaman was a step in the right direction, but their big hitters, movies that were crucial to the development of the DCEU, like Justice League and Batman v Superman, were flops. DC had been rushing to get their own version of the MCU up and running, and everything was falling apart. In October of 2022, it was announced that James Gunn would be taking on the task of creating and leading the next phase of DC films, under their newly rebranded DC Studios division. And although Gunn's contributions to the MCU had been positively received, the news was met with mixed feelings. A few years prior to that, fans were lucky enough to receive the Snyder Cut of the Justice League. And speaking for a lot of fans, it was really nice to see the Justice League come together on screen as initially intended. Although it wasn't on the level of the Avengers, the movie was a huge hit with fans, and sparked more interest in Snyder's version of the DCEU. So when it was announced that Snyder would be stepping down and Gunn would be taking over, a lot of fans were understandably upset. A lot of fans were also very confused though. I mean, at the time of the announcement, we knew that we would still be seeing The Flash and Blue Beetle released in the summer of 2023, with Aquaman 2 releasing later that year as well. Following the announcement of Gunn's addition, he soon clarified that he would be recasting some of the already established DC characters. So characters like The Flash, Superman, Batman, and yes, Aquaman would not be returning in Gunn's version of the DC cinematic universe. Now that brings up a really obvious problem. Why should we care about these characters and their stories at all, knowing that anything that happens in this film doesn't really matter? Sure, the movie could be good individually on its own, like the Batman, but the announcement of the end of the DCEU just killed any and all excitement for this movie. And that leads me to the next part. Star power isn't usually enough to get people to watch movies nowadays, at least when compared to Hollywood in the past. But one thing that I think is still true is that actors and actresses can be so off-putting to audiences that they actually repel potential viewers. Of course, in this instance, the supporting actress of Aquaman 2 just happens to be one of the most disliked public figures in the industry. I won't go into too much detail here in this video since I know most of you already know about this by now, but the whole Amber Heard Johnny Depp debacle really tainted Heard's image. Fans were really upset with her, and there were plenty of calls to have her removed from Aquaman 2, and even calls to boycott the film altogether. They're definitely keeping Heard out of the trailer on purpose. You can keep Amber in as little as 3 frames, but I noticed her. Way to go. Hiding her as much as possible, but still having her. I also touched on this earlier, but I completely forgot that this movie was even coming out. I don't know about you guys, but I saw so little marketing for this movie, and actually, aside from the one trailer, I don't remember seeing any material leading up to this movie at all. According to Collider, the movie also didn't receive a red carpet premiere. And you know what? I'm gonna say that Amber Heard is partially to blame for that. Nobody wants to have her be the face of the movie, or even be discussed at a press event like that. That's just a recipe for disaster, and you know that there'd be people who'd ask about her. It's almost as if they didn't want anybody to watch the movie. Almost as if there's a lack of confidence in the movie's performance. And that's probably because finally we gotta face the most subjective part of the video, where I say that the movie just isn't very good. Like, I won't go out and say that it's an abomination, and I'll even admit that there are some good moments sprinkled throughout the film, but the movie's just a mess. But don't just take my word for it though. Feel free to check out the movie yourself and come to your own conclusion. I also don't want to turn this video into an outright movie review, so I'll just leave you with this. It honestly looked like everyone involved just wanted to be done with this movie. And that's a feeling I think I also shared. Have you guys watched Aquaman 2? I'm curious to see how you guys felt about it, so let me know in the comments below. And while you're here, make sure to go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe for more videos like this. With all that said, thanks for watching and stay winning.